What's going on, everybody? Oh man, what a weekend. It was a little bit overcast and rainy out here in Northern California this weekend, but Lucy had a game on Saturday. They won 3-0. She had a couple of assists, played really well. And then on Sunday, Molly wanted to plant a garden. And so we do that most years, is we'll plant a garden. And, I talk about Lucy and her soccer. That's because Molly's sports are kind of behind her at this point. She's a sophomore in college. But she's my baker. She's my chef. She's my reader. She is an awesome kid. And so we started with just some empty dirt and looking for some love. And before you knew it, we had planted a garden. So we had some squash out there, some zucchini, some tomatoes, and then some herbs and stuff as well. So excited for that. That'll be a lot of fun over the next several months with Molly. But we had a great time out there. Even though it was overcast and maybe sprinkled on us a little bit, it was well worth it and a lot of fun. Now, before I go much further, a reminder, tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific is Midlife Live number 4. And I'm going back to my original crew that did Midlife Live 1. Again, it is Darren, Return to Collecting. It is Tony, Southern Collector 14. And it is the one, the only, Mr. Mike Petty. We are going to have a blast. I hope that you'll join us. Now, originally, we were planning on talking mostly about this topic of comps, which we'll be covering here today. But also, we're going to be talking about kind of where's the market and what's the economy going to do to the market, some of that stuff. But then on Friday, I posted a video about, it was a discussion. It was off topic with Darren. And again, every month we have a guest. And this month's guest was Mike Moynihan. And he made some comments and he had some strong statements about what he thinks the future of SGC is. And it got a little bit of attention and a few people were kind of talking about it. So we're going to pivot a little, and tomorrow we will continue that discussion about what does the future hold for SGC after having a couple of days to kind of digest that conversation with Mike and some of his opinions and some of his thoughts, and kind of unpack that a little bit, and I'll see what the other guys think. Darren had some great points during that conversation. If you've not watched it, Darren's expertise of working in the business corporate world and going through mergers a lot, his experience that he shared, I thought was really insightful. If you haven't checked out that video from Saturday, Friday. It posted on Friday. I'll put a link in the description down below. You definitely want to check that out. But we'll pick up a little bit on there tomorrow night as well. But my question to all of you last week was, how do you comp cards? What is your process for deciding what is a card worth and what you should pay for it? Because I think the process of comping cards is changing. And I wanted insight. Do other people think it's changing? How do you do it? And I had polar opposite opinions. And we'll talk about those and look at those right here. Some people say comps? Yeah, no thanks. My good buddy Dylan of Double D Vintage Baseball Cards says, great episode as always. For your question about comps, before I went on the great purge of selling my uglier higher grades for better looking lower grades, I used to look at comps and buy the cheapest, highest grade possible. Now, I refuse to look at comps and my collection looks 100 times better for it. I refuse to let the number determine what I pay for a card, and I refuse to let what someone else has paid prior to me determine what the card is worth. I am buying purely based off the look of the card, and for the future, I see where these so-called overpays, based off the number, will be worth much more than they are now. The future is bright for those who become number blind or comp blind. Now, if you're a dealer and trying to resell the card a day later, that's a completely different situation than purely a collector or betting on the future. Also, if you're new to the hobby, then please, by all means, use comps. And my guy Jay, Average Vintage Collector, says, great video again this week, Greg. As for the question for next week, I'm awful at this simply because if I see a card I want, I'm going to get it most likely, even if it's overpriced. Let me break it down and give you an example. Prior to going to Strongsville, I wrote down comps for all of my targets. It took a lot of time. Once at the show, I never looked at those comps. I found a card, saw the price, and then asked what was the best they could do. If the offer seemed fair, I said yes. But what determines fair? To me, it's a price coming down between 10 to 20%. And sometimes, even when the price didn't come down, I still said yes, even though later I found out that I overpaid. Why? Because I wanted the cards, so damn the comps. I know that's not the smartest strategy, but my window of opportunity is limited a lot of times, so I have to take advantage when I can. All right, a couple of guys I really like. I got Dylan, I got Jay. Both have great channels, really good guys. I got to see Jay and meet him in person for the first time at Strongsville. Both have really good channels. I'll put links in the description down below to their channels. But both of them basically said, I don't really go off of comps. I kind of go off of what seems like it's fair. And Jay's comment cracked me up because I did the exact same thing. Like, I spent a couple of hours listing cards that I was targeting for Strongsville. And I bought two of the cards on the list. And one was the Sandy Koufax. I have it right here, actually. One was the Sandy Koufax rookie card. And the other one, do I have it right here? I don't have the other one right here, is the Christy Mathewson T206 card. And I comped them at home on paper before I went to the show. And I never looked at the paper. And I just was like, these seem like fair prices. These seem like fair prices. You know, I looked up a couple of comps there on the spot. They were close enough. I felt like both cards to me looked at least as good as the numeric grade. So if they look better than the number, what's the point of even comping them to that number? You know, if the card is a 2, you know, assigned a 2 from PSA, and I think it looks better than that. I think it looks like a 2.5 or a 3. Then why comp it with 2s? It's better than 2s in my eyes. And those are the only eyes that matter. Now, if someone else might see it and go, it looks like a 1, dude. Great. It's not your card. I like it. It suits my eye. So I kind of think that this makes a lot of sense. Get the card that you like and don't be so hung up. There have been a lot of times that I've done this. I know my dad has done this, and you know, we'll look at a card together and he'll be bidding on a card and we'll look at it and say, well, you know, for a 3, the highest it's ever sold for is, you know, $700. So then, but it looks like a 5. And so, you know, you bid, I don't know, 5%, 10% over comp, and you don't get it, and you're like, what the heck? Why did somebody bid so high? It's higher than it's ever sold for before. Because it looks better than one has ever looked in that grade before. So the comp for the number kind of goes out the window when the card looks better than the number. And when we're living in this world where, you know, sometimes you see a card and you get it and you send it in to PSA and it gets 1 grade, and then you crack it and then you send it in again to PSA or SGC or whoever, and it gets a completely different number, not even close. If that's happening, why are we still using the number to comp instead of what the card looks like? I get it. So what I did is I pulled a few cards that I paid high comp for. I paid at the high end of the comp. Now, I don't think I set a new record with any of these, but you know, I paid within the range of what they had sold for, but very high end of the range. So one is my 33 Gowdy Rogers Hornsby. I bought this last year at Strongsville. And I'm getting glare, but I don't know. That's a beautiful 3 in my opinion. And the registration on a lot of the 33 Gowdies can be pretty blurry. This thing is crystal clear. The color on it is outstanding. The centering on it is fine. They're honest corners, right, Petty? They're honest corners, which is, I don't mind honest corners. I like honest corners on old cards. I paid at the high end. I would never sell this card because to me, it's better than the grade. So someone's going to try to pay me what the grade is, but it's better than the grade. Another card I paid at the high end. My Walter Johnson T206 Hands at Chest. Got that at the National last year. That was my most expensive purchase. This is my most expensive purchase ever. I got it at last year's National. Now, to me, the centering, the registration, the color, the centering, I mean, it's just, again, honest corners. Love that term. That term always makes me laugh. But you look at that card, and to me, that's a really nice 3. So I paid up for it. But you know what? I mean, I'm thrilled with the purchase. Here's a couple more. So the Sandy Koufax I just showed. I think that's a beautiful 4.5. Beautiful. And I paid under the high end of the comps. I paid within the range, but I paid at the high end of the range. And I think it was worth it. Here's another card. I was searching for this card for 2 years. One of my favorite images on a card of all time. The 53 Bowman color Warren Spahn. Look at how beautiful that is. I was looking for a 3, a 4, or a 5 that looked like a 6. Well, there it is. And I paid at the high end. Again, I paid within the range, but the very high end of the range, worth every penny. Because I have a card that I think looks like a 6, and I paid at the high end of 4 for it. And here's another one. My 55 Jackie in a PSA 4. I mean, I think that's a beautiful 4. Beautiful 4. I mean, it's really well centered. It's really good color. It's darn good corners. I think it's a fantastic card. And I paid at the high end of what a 4 goes for. Are there people out there who have a 4 that paid less than me? Oh, there are a lot of people who have a 4 that paid less than me. None of them have a card that looks that nice, though. So I'm all about buying cards that I think are undergraded and then trying to pay for the range within the comps. But to Dylan's point, a card that is really, really well centered in 1955 of Jackie Robinson is so rare. It's so rare to find a really well-centered one. I mean, he makes the argument, and I think he's probably right. The rarest thing in vintage cards is centering. Really good centering is really rare. So, if the future of the hobby is eye appeal and centering, again, that's Dylan's take. That's kind of what he just said a second ago. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I misdiagnosing what you said, Dylan, down in the comments. Tell me. But if the future of the hobby is centering and eye appeal, and you are buying cards that have impeccable centering and impeccable eye appeal, then in the future, those are the cards that should go up the most. And therefore, how much does comping even matter? And I think that's his point. He said, that is a perfectly centered whatever. That is a perfectly centered or close to it Sandy Koufax rookie card. If you want it, you're going to have to pay up. And that probably means that comps have to go out the window. But these are 5 cards right here that I paid up for. And they're 5 of my favorite cards in my collection. And I think that's part of Dylan's point. Sometimes you see the card that speaks to you, right? You see it and you're like, I can't stop thinking about that card. It just looks how I want it to look. Oh man, but he's $50 over comp. That's all? That's all? He's only $50 over comp for a card that you can't stop thinking about? And a card that just jumps off the table? When those things happen, you kind of got to, I think that's when you listen. I really think that comps are becoming less and less important. That's just my take. Doesn't mean it's the right take. Again, that's the whole thing here. Dylan and Jay just had one comment. Dylan is at one extreme. There are other people who are at an opposite extreme. Neither's wrong. It's just a difference of opinion. It's just a difference of opinion. It doesn't mean that either is wrong. I mean, heck, I'm a Yankee fan, and Jake of Wax Pack Wisdom, he's a Red Sox fan. He's a Red Sox fan. Is he wrong? Well, that one might be different. Let's hear what some of the other people had to say. Some people said comps, it's not that difficult. My good buddy Tony, Southern Collector 14, says, great video. I think YouTube personalities are overrated. Ha ha. This was a great thought-provoking video. Thanks for all you do. The answer to your question is the following. I check prices on VCP and Card Ladder for comps. However, I definitely check the picture of each prospective comp before making a final decision on the prospective card. Ultimately, the comp is only a starting point. Sometimes I am the one who sets the new comp. Like Mike Petty and I like to preach when setting new comps, records are made to be broken. This next one says, very good video, Greg. As for next week's question, how do I get my comps? I still use my old Beckett magazine. How could you go wrong? What I do is look up the sales of the card over the last 90 days, then look at the individual sales to see what those cards looked like to get an idea of how accurate the prices were. At the end, I'll make an informed offer based on the research I've done. This next one says, comps shouldn't be that difficult. In general, look up a few years of sales history. Check graded pop counts and if they have skyrocketed recently and calculate a ballpark number. Then bid or offer based on the specific card. As always, check the certificate number against the grading company's database and image scans. So, some really good ones in there, right? Some really good comments that I just read there. And it's like, when I listen to Dylan, it's hard to disagree with that. But then when I listen to those, it's hard to disagree with that. Like you say, okay, yeah, I look up what they sell for, but I don't just look up, what does a 3 sell for because I'm looking at a 3. You go, I look at what a 3 sold for and I look at that example and compare it to the example that I'm looking at. Because there are people that are going to say, oh my gosh, the last two comps were $3,000 and $3,200 for this card. And this is the same card in the same grade, and they're only asking $2,200. Well, maybe it's because this one's kind of a dog for the grade, and it's not as nice as those. So if you go straight off of comps, then you might be buying cards that aren't that nice, but that numeric number that was assigned, right? That was assigned by a person sitting in a room, either down in Florida, up in New Jersey, or over in Southern California. And they assigned them the same number, but they're not equivalent, right? I mean, there are lots of things in this world that are the same, but they're really not, right? Oh, I have a job. Great, you have a job. Not every job is the same. Not every job is the same. Not every person is the same. They're both people. They're not the same. There are a lot of things that are different. And when you look at two cards, you say, they both have a 3 at the top of it. On that little flip, on that little tag from PSA, they both have a 3. So I'm going to use the number. I think that's the biggest takeaway is if you are a person who is a strong believer in comp and looking up what they've sold for, I don't think that's a wrong thing to do. That's what I do. That's what I do. But what I also do is I look at the actual image of that card, sort of like what Tony said. You go, okay, what is a 4 sold for? What does that 4 look like? If the one that you're looking at looks better than the last 3 that sold, and you're getting it for the price of the last 3, you're getting a steal. Comps can work to your advantage. The best thing that could happen, if there's a card you're after, let's say you're really after a 54 Hank Aaron, and the last 2 or 3 in the grade range that you're looking were just dogs, and they sold for not very much because they're not really that great looking. And then you go to a show and you find one in that same grade range, but it looks undergraded. It looks like it should have gotten better, but for some reason, the grader was harsh that day. That's a perfect buying opportunity. That is a perfect buying opportunity. You want to buy when the recent sales at the same grade are low, and the one that you're looking at has the same grade, but it should have been higher. That is a golden. And then you say, come on, man. The last 2 sold for $2,000. You're asking, $2,300, and the last 2 sold for $2,000. I'll pay you full comp. That's a buying opportunity. Comps can be your best friend, or they could be your worst enemy. If you're buying one that is not up to par for the grade, but you're paying the average sale price of ones at that grade, or the last couple were high end and sold for more, you might not be getting a very good deal. And as I showed recently, a week or 2 ago, after Strongsville, it was my video on my biggest takeaways from the Strongsville show. The spread right now in various grades for comps is wider than it's ever been. Like a 4, I think one example was this Koufax, I think I pulled. And it was like there were some that sold for under $1,000 in a 4.5. And there are some that sold for in the 1700s in a 4.5. That is a massive range. And what does that mean? That means that comps are less exact than they used to be, which again, I think is a good thing. So I have a question for next week. And my question for next week goes to my video from last Friday, where it was me and Darren doing our off topic, and our guest was Mike Moynihan, okay? And Mike Moynihan said, before I could even finish the sentence, he said he didn't think SGC would exist in 3 years. I've gotten more emails and text messages and comments of people saying, I wish I was in that discussion because I have a lot to say on this. Here's your opportunity, because my question is as follows. Do you think SGC will exist as a brand in 3 years? Why or why not? Explain your answer. I am going to be talking about this topic tomorrow night, Midlife Live 4, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to start with this. We're going to start with this topic. So be on time, because we're going to get right after it. It's an interesting one. None of us know. Peter might not even know. There are some people that know, but I don't think any of us know. But we all probably have some thoughts. We all might want them to exist. Even if you're a PSA person, even if you hate SGC, I think you want them to continue to exist, don't you? You want them to continue to be around, because the quote unquote competition seems like it would be good for even PSA people. I don't know. You guys tell me. I want SGC to exist. I think most people want them to exist. Some people maybe not. But the question is, not do you want them to exist? Not will you be mad if they are gone? Do you think they will exist? Do you think that collectors will continue the SGC brand 3 years and beyond from today?